Live. I'm your host, Joe Beck, founder of the Sales Activist and host of the Impact Sales podcast. Impact Sales Live was created to shine a spotlight on the best practices and tips that will help you stand out from the crowd in regards to sales. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a coach, or a consultant, or a sales professional selling for a company, you'll get a lot of value from Impact Sales Live. I'll be hosting Impact Sales Live every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. So block off your calendar and make sure you start off your week the right way right here. Impact Sales Live today is sponsored by our premier sponsor, Podcast Easy. Podcast Easy is your go-to source for all things podcasting. You just speak and their team will take care of the rest. We use Podcast Easy to help us create the Impact Sales podcast, and we are so completely thrilled with the results. To learn more about Podcast Easy, check out the link that I'm going to be dropping right in the chat. So let's get started here in just one moment. Here we go. So to kick things off, what I'd like to do is just have a quick explanation about Impact Sales Live. You never know what might happen here or who will be on. We do have some guests scheduled coming up in the next few weeks. Plan on seeing guests sharing success stories and successes. And most importantly, you're going to be making sure that you get a lot of valuable insights and information that you can put into action for your business. No matter what you're providing, no matter what service, product, or offering you're bringing to the world, we're going to work hard to make sure we bring a lot of value that has a real positive impact on your success here on Impact Sales Live. So today we're going to jump into a topic that actually referenced and talked about a little bit a few weeks ago, and that was the topic of fear as it relates to the sales process. And got a few requests from some people who wanted me to go a little deeper and talk a little bit more about fear as it related to sales itself, how it can impact your mindset, your productivity, your results, everything related to sales, and really do a little bit of a deeper dive on the topic of sales and how you can work on that in the furtherance of your sales goals. So the first thing I always like to do when I talk about sales is I like to break it down in a very simple way for people to kind of rationalize it. See, there's no getting around the fact that as human beings, we all have certain fears and limitations and concerns that we may have. And, no amount of mindset training can get you to completely do away with fear. It's always going to be there. I'm more of a believer in the concept of fear mastery, really taking control of your fear, understanding it for what it is, putting it in a safe place off to the side where it doesn't impact you personally or professionally. It's just a more realistic approach of how you can really impact yourself in a positive way. I think it's challenging sometimes for people that think that they're going to completely overcome fear. I don't think that's possible. I think you need to just recognize that fear as it relates to anything in life, especially sales, brings with it a lot of challenges and obstacles, and as well as opportunities for you to develop yourself both personally and professionally. And I many times, talk about in the work that I do and the coaching and training that I've done over the years and continue to do that. I tell people that I'm not in the sales training and sales coaching business. I'm in the fear removal business. And that's actually true, but it's only partially true. I don't really remove it. I more or less push it off to the side. It really is fear mastery. It's the idea that you could put fear in a place where it doesn't impact your success. It doesn't hold you back. It doesn't restrict your ability to do the things that you're capable of doing and accomplishing. And this is so true as it relates to sales. I've seen thousands of sales professionals over my career who have struggled with fear in a lot of different ways. And I'm going to talk about some of those ways today. I'm going to make sure that I share with all of you some important insights on how to kind of master fear as it relates to these things. And more importantly, how you can look at it in a healthy way to be able to get you through it. In no way do I ever want to diminish somebody having a fear for anything in life. Fear is a reality of the world that we live in, and it's certainly a reality for all of us to have to deal with. What you want to try to master is fear taking control of you and your success. You want to be able to try to master it and put it off to the side where it doesn't hold you back. And there's a lot of things that people are afraid of. And I'm going to kind of walk through a few steps here and how to look at fear in a healthy way and how to channel it in a way that's going to work to your benefit. See, people are afraid of things for a lot of different reasons. Sometimes they're afraid of rejection, they're afraid of failing. Um, Many times, when you dig a little deeper, it's not the rejection that they're afraid of, and it's not even sometimes the fear of failure that they're afraid of. They're afraid of the unknown. They're afraid of change, and change is scary. Not all change can be positive, and people know that sometimes change can end up being a negative thing as well. So when it comes to fear, especially in the sales process, a lot of people get hung up on the idea that something may change in a way that they're not prepared for. And the problem with that is that really is a two-pronged attack that can impact you whether you're thinking negatively or thinking positively. I have, had the opportunity to interact with a lot of sales professionals, coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs who have struggled with a fear of success. They've struggled with the fear of actually accomplishing something because they knew by doing it, their life was going to change, and they weren't quite ready for that. Now, maybe they weren't ready because of personal reasons. Maybe they weren't ready because of professional reasons. Maybe the shoulders weren't quite ready for the burden that success may bring somebody. And I think it's important for everybody, no matter who you are or what you're trying to sell out in the world, that you really dig down and ask yourself some personal questions about what you are afraid of and write them all down. In fact, it's a really good best practice for you to write down everything that may concern you or make you afraid as it relates to what it is that you're selling. It could be something specific to the product offering. It could be something specific to your client's reactions, such as rejection, being abused verbally, emotionally, as it relates to the work that you do. It could have something to do with the fact that things could go well and you could win business, and there's a fear over whether or not you really can deliver it as well as you think you can deliver whatever it is you're offering. Maybe it's a fear of how your life is going to change in a way by succeeding that you just aren't prepared for. Maybe your friends, your family aren't prepared for that. Maybe it's going to change your lifestyle, your standard of living, or maybe even just how you look at yourself or how other people look at you. All of this comes together and creates a lot of fear and anxiety for an individual. It's important, though, that you deal with it head on, that you figure out a way to navigate through it, whether you move around it, whether you push it off to the side and master it the way I like to teach people. But one way or the other, you have to deal with it. If you don't deal with it, it won't go away. It will rear its ugly head at some point later in the process, maybe when the stakes are higher, or maybe when there's an opportunity that you really, really want to win and something holds you back. That fear restricts your ability of doing something that you really should do to be able to overcome that challenge. It holds you back. It becomes like an anchor dragging and holding you back from your success. So just as a best practice or a tip, write down everything that concerns you. Write it all down. Every single fear you could possibly have. Put it in a journal, a notebook, a tablet, someplace that you can go back and look at it and remind yourself of the things that are real or imagined. Remind yourself of the things that truly are legitimate fears, or are they emotional fears? Are they psychological fears? Now, I'm not saying that those fears aren't real, and I'm not saying that they aren't something that could dramatically impact you. I want you clearly to understand that all fear can impact you. What I'm saying is you need to start categorizing your fear. You need to put certain things in a certain bucket and others in another, things that you can control versus things you can't control. A lot of times people get hung up on the things that they can't control, things that are outside of their control, things that other people do, other companies do, what the market does, things that they can't control overwhelm them. And one of the first tactics in overcoming fear is the old adage about controlling what you can control and not worrying so much about the things that you can't. Focus on the things that you can truly control. Master those first. And realize that the things that are outside of your control, you cannot impact. All you can do, all you can do truly in a way of impacting those things is controlling how it impacts you, controlling how it may affect you or change the direction or trajectory that you have for yourself. That's all you can do. You can't control what's going on with these other people or companies or the market or all of these things. You can only control your reaction to it. So on your list of things, ask yourself, is this something that's truly controllable by me? Or is it something that I can only control my response to whatever it is that might be my fear? And start paying attention to what those things are and start reminding yourself when you face one of those things in one category or another. If it is something that is outside of your control, something that you cannot change, double down and understand that your reaction, how you allow it to impact you or not, is your control. It is your opportunity to be able to take control of that fear and actually manage it and master it. And if you focus on that element and not get caught up in what you could have done differently, because again, in that category, there were things you couldn't control, it was somebody else's control. You're just focusing on what you can, which is your response, your reaction to it. Now, ultimately, how we respond to fear in general from any origin is entirely up to us. How we let it impact us, how we how we can allow it to get to us. And some people are more adept at others at controlling their emotions and pushing things off to the side, compartmentalizing things, putting them in buckets or silos or whatever analogy you want to use, nice little boxes. There's some people out there that I'm sure that are listening that are masters at stuffing things in boxes and wrapping it up and never having to think about it again until the box just breaks loose. Well, certain things you can do that with, other things you can't. So as it relates to mastering fear in sales, start with asking yourself, are these things within my control or are they things without my control? If they're things that I don't control, my only element of control is my reaction to them. Okay. One of the things that fear does to people is it changes the way you respond and you react to many, many different things. And people always joke around and talk about how alcohol or drugs can impact exactly how you may respond to something or what you may do or what your reactions may be, right? But fear, true emotional fear over something, can have the same exact effect. It can actually change the way you may normally respond. It could make you say things that you would normally say because you're nervous or afraid. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're bad, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's good either for you. It may not truly position you in the way that you would like. So the first step in any problem is recognizing truly what the problem is, identifying it, breaking it down. And this is the same in sales as it is in life. If you don't recognize what the problem is, truly define it so you can identify it when it comes up clearly, you're going to have a challenge with it. See, many times people don't even realize sometimes that these things are impacting them. Sometimes they can't admit it to themselves. Sometimes they won't own it personally, that something makes them concerned or worries them or creates fear in them. So the first thing you have to do is acknowledge what it is, recognize it and define it, and then decide how you're going to deal with it. And I know this isn't directly only related to sales. It's related to any aspect of fear, but in professional selling, it absolutely has a major impact because if you go into any interaction with the wrong frame of mind, coming from a position where you're fearful or nervous over what it is that you're sharing or communicating to your prospect, you're not going to get the results that you're looking for. So for many people, especially as it relates to selling, is they spend way too much time thinking about all the things that can go wrong. They could say no, they could reject me harshly, they could avoid me, they could ghost me, they could do all these different things. That list is very, very long. And then the average person spends very little time thinking about the positives if something goes right. And I know some people do, but the average person doesn't, whether you realize this or not, whether your challenge, your fear is whether it's just reaching out, putting together a proposal, engaging people the first time, talking to people that you've never met before, public speaking. These are all things that just fire off the fear synapses in your mind, right? Not everybody, but for many people. But the first thing that you got to do after you identify exactly what that fear is and figure out how you're going to deal with it is you need to approach it with a clear understanding of what impact it's going to have on you. And the average person, like it or not, thinks about the negative more than they think about the positive. And the second shift that you need to make after identifying it is tell yourself and start communicating to yourself, truly communicating to yourself that start thinking about the positives of you making that sale or winning that client or winning that business. Start thinking about the positives in a positive way for yourself and focus on that. Now, I want to make sure that I clearly describe to everybody that the origin, the core basis for all of this is always doing right by your client and having a servant's heart and truly trying to become that trusted advisor to your client by making good recommendations, things that are going to truly help them and move their business forward. But we're going to make that assumption for today's live. We're going to make the assumption that you would do that. It's after that point, after you've done all of that, where you have to start thinking in a positive way about the positive impacts of what success would look like as it relates to your sales process. And it could be something as simple as, if I win 2 more clients of this size, here's what my business would look like. Or if I achieve this revenue plateau, here's what else I could do to invest in my business and make it grow and help more people. Or if I'm able to achieve this year-end number, I can grow my business incrementally and start looking at expanding it. It doesn't matter where you are in the process. You could be anywhere in the sales process, anywhere in the development of your company, but you need to shift more so on focusing on the positives and not the negatives. And I can say that after working with thousands of sales professionals over the years, thousands of people, coaches, consultants, entrepreneurs. I've seen it all. More times than not, people spend time obsessing over the negatives. What if the client says this? What if they say that? What if they this? And it's almost always on the negative side. Now, I'm not saying there's not a place for that, because I think that helps you in the preparation stage of making sure you're doing good work and being thorough. I think if you can mentally think through the things that they may hit you with and come back at you with, it helps you prepare to be better in your role. Jotting down those potential objections or the things that they push back on, the negatives, can help you prepare to overcome them. No question about it. What I'm saying is, for a certain percentage of people, and it's not a small percentage, for a certain percentage of people, they will struggle with success because they won't get out of the starting blocks because they obsess so much on the negative that something will hold them back. Maybe they won't make that call. Maybe they won't send that email. Maybe they won't do that marketing that they know they needed to do. Maybe they won't follow up as quickly as they could, and they psychologically sabotage their success. Now, I'm not even saying it's conscious. It could be a subconscious thing. What I'm saying is that somewhere in the basis of all of that is fear. And that fear could be the fear of failing and dealing with that objection, that pushback, that negativity that could be coming. They've obsessed on it and now it's overwhelmed them and it pushes them to not do something the right way. Or it could be fear of success. It could be a fear of being afraid of how life may look if you are successful and not being ready for that. And the fact is, you have to deal with them both the same way. You have to deal with them head on. There are certain things about fear you need to understand. Fear in and of itself is not a bad thing. Okay. Fear is not bad. Fear keeps you sharp. It can keep you honest. It can keep you focused and really help you drill down on things that you need to do, as long as you don't allow it to control you. For many people, their full potential is never reached because somewhere along the way, they've allowed different things to control them. Sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's environmental. It's other people. It's culture. Sometimes it's their own self-limiting beliefs. And the beliefs don't necessarily need to be tied to fear. They just may not have the confidence that they need. And there's a similar check down list for confidence as there is with fear, and how you approach it. But what it's important for all of you to understand as it relates to fear is something that can be controlled and absolutely, without question, can be conditioned. And here's how I want to prove that to you all. I don't know if you knew this, and maybe you did, but there are really only 2 natural fears that human beings are born with, inherently born with, and have truly when they're born. And those 2 fears are the fear of loud noises and the fear of heights, the fear of falling. Those are really, and studies have shown this, those are the only two inherent fears that people have. Every other fear in your life, in your business, in your sales process, every other fear that you're going to have related to your own success is something that you learned or something that was conditioned into you up until this point of life. It doesn't matter what it is, it doesn't matter where it came from, but it was conditioned into you. You learned it. You either observed it, you read about it, thought about it, saw a movie about it. Somewhere you were conditioned to have that fear. You weren't born with it. You were conditioned to have that fear, to be afraid of something. Now, sometimes the elements that condition us are outside of our control. And the only thing that I'm saying as it relates to that, even if those elements are outside of our control and they've impacted you, it doesn't mean that you can't condition yourself back. It doesn't mean that you can't reverse the effect of that fear by understanding what it is and addressing it a different way. Now, as it relates to this sales process, it's really important because for the people that really want to achieve great success in selling, you have to overcome certain elements of fear. You can't be afraid of making a phone call. You can't be afraid of having a Zoom call. You can't be afraid of a face-to-face meeting. Maybe to achieve the level of success you want, you can't be afraid of it, in-person public speaking in front of a large group. Some people are wired to do that. They're comfortable doing it. Other people are struggle with it. Quite honestly, they struggle with it intently. Everybody's different. Some people are more nervous of an individual one-on-one reaction versus a group reaction. But all of this was conditioned and was learned by you. It isn't something that you were born with. So if you're sitting there watching this or watching the recording later on, and you're feeling like some of these elements are outside of your control, they absolutely aren't. They just aren't. You can change any of these elements as it relates to the sales process, whether it's your limiting beliefs tied to fear, whether it's fear itself, whether it's something that's happened to you or with you as a result of work that you've done. If it's a fear that's been conditioned into your life, which I just shared with you is just about every fear you have, it can be conditioned out of your life. Now, I don't mean out as in gone. It doesn't disappear from your mind or your heart or your soul if it's something that truly worries you, but it can be mastered. It can be pushed off to the side and controlled. And in the sales process, this is really important. And it comes from having the right perspective to not allow things to impact you. It's kind of like having a suit of armor on as it relates to what it is that you're trying to do to help people. And that's the analogy that I want you to have. If you're out there selling or providing a product, a service, or an offering that helps people, and it helps people consistently, and it'll have a real positive effect on that person or that business or whatever it is that you're doing or offering, look at it like you're wearing a suit of armor, going to war to help them, protect them, right? You're their warrior, providing it to them. You shouldn't be afraid of things that aren't going to penetrate your armor. You shouldn't be afraid of things that are going to hold you back from your mission of helping that business. And that's the mindset that you need to have to get through it. Now, that's one analogy of thousands of different ways that you can look at something, but it's important to understand what it is that you're really talking about. You're talking about removing something that's currently potentially an obstacle, a fear of rejection, a fear of whatever it may be, a fear of success, a fear of embarrassing yourself or being looked down upon, however it's defined in your mind and whatever it is. You have to figure out some analogy that will work for you to allow you to envision yourself in that warrior position, solving the problem, protecting the client, doing whatever it is that you do as a professional. And what you'll find is if you can find what that analogy is and you had a good understanding of what your fears and concerns are, it becomes much easier for you to rationalize overcoming little obstacles. There's 1,000 different ways that you can, brainwash yourself into believing that things aren't going to impact you, right? Just like there's 1,000 different things that have brainwashed you throughout your life to make you believe certain things about your life, your success, your profession, whatever it is. All of these influences can impact you. What I'm saying is you need to figure out how to master them, kind of like the Jedi mind trick, and tell yourself there isn't anything to be concerned about. These are the things that you're doing. You truly have faith and confidence in yourself and not be distracted by the background noise, the static that can impact you. Look, it's too easy to get distracted nowadays, right? You pick up your phone and all of a sudden you find 500 people doing what you're doing, or it could create a lot of pressure. All of a sudden people that you're talking to are interacting with people that are your competitors. Pressure builds and mounts. But the one thing that you can go back to is a reminder that you are that warrior out there trying to solve the problems for the clients and move things forward to overcome that fear. You can be impacted by fear in a positive way every bit as much as you can in a negative way. You just have to figure out how to use it, how to master it. And that's one of the major elements of what I help people do in sales environments, both in coaching and in training environments. If you're struggling with sales, if you're struggling with fear, objection handling, if you're struggling with how you're looking at your sales effort, your business, and generating enough sales, and you need to kind of figure out all the different mind hacks to get you on the right track, I would love to help. You can reach out to me by texting the word sales to the number 321-421-5213. You can jump on my calendar. I'll have a complimentary conversation with you about it. We'll talk about sales and exactly how you can overcome these fears and not only just achieve a certain level of success. I'll tell you, during that same conversation, I can show you exactly, from no matter where you are right now, how to triple your sales results in 6 months or less. And you definitely want to take part in that call. We'll go through a lot of that stuff. We'll share all the things about fear, and I'll show you how you channel that the right way by mastering your fear and moving towards greater success. I want to take this opportunity as well just to once again thank our premier sponsor, Podcast EZ. Podcast EZ has done a lot in helping us develop the Sales Activist brand. The Podcast EZ team helped us develop the Impact Sales podcast. It's on 38 different platforms. Without question, having a podcast has changed the trajectory of our business, and it's opened doors that we didn't think was possible. Every week we hear from people who heard one of our podcasts and are interested in learning more about our business and exactly what we can do to help their sales efforts. So if you're interested in a podcast, if you've ever thought about podcasting, you definitely want to check them out. Click on the link that I put in the chat. It's, bit.ly/Your Easy Podcast. It's in the chat. Definitely check them out. So I want to go back to fear. I want to talk about fear now in a rational way as it relates to how you channel it and master it. One of the things that I've done historically over my working career has been to have been put in some pretty challenging sales environments, fiercely competitive environments, high turnover environments, competitive industry environments, environments where the company was filing bankruptcy and they were restructuring, challenging environments. And the one thing that I learned early on, this came from one of my mentors who taught me about it, was one of your most important weapons is fear mastery. Because if you allow fear to creep into your effort, no matter what it is that you do, whether it's sales or some other area of your business, if you allow fear to creep into your effort, it will spread faster than anything you can imagine. It will paralyze you as a professional. It will hold you back. It will absolutely, without question, restrict you from being able to reach all of the people that you should reach with your product, service, or offering. And quite honestly, I can't think of anything that would be a bigger shame in the world than to have somebody who has something that's a game changer, something that's an offering that can help a lot of people or help a lot of businesses or just create a better quality of life out there. Nothing more painful than seeing somebody that has all of that and somehow fear masters them instead of them mastering fear, because ultimately it just means there's a lot fewer people that would have the opportunity to benefit from those offerings. Just like when you started your business or your product or your job, if you're selling for a company, you were targeting a certain list of people. You know, there was a certain group of people, a targeted avatar for your prospect as to who would work best by receiving your product, who your best client looked like. And I encourage you all, when it comes to fear, to look down those lists of people, the types of people, the people, individual people that you may know of, and ask yourself the question, have I done everything that I could possibly do to help these people? Have I done everything I could possibly do to impact their success, show them my offering, change their world in a positive way? Have I put on that suit of armor? Have I overcome the fear? Have I done everything I could possibly do? Because if the answer is no, you haven't, there's probably only a few things that could be holding you back. One could be fear. Now, we're not going to talk about what the other ones are today. It might be a time limitation. It might be another limitation. But today, we're talking about fear. Fear makes up the biggest chunk of the reason why people do or don't do things. It's not money. It's not time. It's fear. I know some people may challenge me on that. They'd say, "Oh, Joe, I'm not afraid to go Hawaii. It's money," or "I'm not afraid to do this. It's time." And that may be true. But I'll tell you, all the other areas of your life that might be holding you back, that might be restricting your ability to accomplish those things, bet you they're tied to fear. I bet you fear somewhere is embedded in that issue, in the core root of the issue, and you don't even realize it's fear. You may rationalize that it's this or that. Why haven't you called the biggest person on your prospect list yet? And I'm talking to anybody here that may be in this place. You have a list of all these clients, and for some reason, you haven't reached out to the best prospects. Is it fear? Yeah. Maybe it's fear that you're not ready. Maybe it's fear that you need time. Maybe it's fear that they could say yes, and you don't know how you would deliver it or what your life would look like if you did. I don't know exactly where everybody is in this. What I do know is whether you acknowledge it or not, fear plays a role in every aspect of your life, as well as the sales process more than anything else. I talk about fear a lot because I believe that if you can overcome fear, you can overcome any sales challenge. In fact, I think if you master fear, if you create a, a plan to truly master fear, and that fear mastery plan is good, I believe you can accomplish anything you want to accomplish sales wise. Just like I believe that anybody is capable of selling at a very high level if you're willing to commit the time and the discipline to developing your skills. It simply is a matter of developing them and restricting your fear, controlling it, mastering it, putting yourself in a place where fear doesn't hold you back. Many times I'd talk to people and I'd look at somebody who's accomplishing great things, and I'd go down the list of their background, their experiences, the things that they've done or not done. And it's not always the person that has the best education that has the accomplishments. It's not always the person that has the best pedigree or work experience. Sometimes it's somebody who's fearlessly in pursuit of what they know will change the world. They know they have it. They know they want to offer it. They know they want to help people. They want to become that trusted advisor, and they fearlessly go forward and do what's necessary to make it happen. And I believe in my heart, deep down, that if you were to look closely at the challenges that you currently face in your own business, I believe that fear is playing a bigger part than you may be recognizing. Now, some people are very much in tune with it and they understand what holds them back. Maybe they understand what holds them back, but they don't know how to fix it. That's where I can come in. That's where other professionals can come in. The fact is, though, if you don't acknowledge that that fear is there and real and impacting your success, if you don't come up with a plan to master it, it won't matter. You won't be able to reach your greatest potential, whatever that is. And I'm not saying it has to be, the highest you could ever imagine. You could be very happy attaining a certain level of success, whatever that is. Fear will impact you across the board. I will tell you, I've found myself professionally in some very challenging circumstances over the years. Very challenging, whether it was closing offices and downsizing companies, whether it was trying to turn around very negative and challenging cultures, sales wise. I've kind of seen it all. And ultimately, one of the most powerful questions that I would share with people at the beginning of the process and throughout the process was, right now, if you were to assess where you are right now, what are you afraid of? What are the biggest fears? What are they? And you'd be amazed how many times that people couldn't communicate what it was. And my wish for all of you that are listening to this or catch the recording is that you will acknowledge what those fears are and figure out a way of mastering them, figuring out how you overcome them. Now, in a sales environment, there's a lot of things that can create negativity. There's a lot of pushback. There's a lot of rejection. There's a lot of no's that you have to hear before you get to some yeses. It's normal. It's a part of business and sales in general. And you have to kind of acknowledge that. And some people are wired well for that. They have thicker skin. They're comfortable with that. They know that, hey, if I got to take 20 no's to get one yes, and that one yes is worth X for me, whatever that is, it's worth it. Now, I'd like it to be less, but it's worth it if I still have to do that. Other people struggle with that. And I think one of the most empowering things that you can do for yourself is to ask yourself, are you that person? Are you that person that has the thick skin, or are you that person that doesn't? And it doesn't mean you're going to fail. It doesn't mean you're not going to be successful, but you have to do two things. You have to try to work on correcting it. And if by some reason you struggle with correcting it, then you need to work on bringing somebody else in to a sales environment that won't be impacted by it. Because if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a coach, a consultant, or you're selling for somebody and you don't have the ability of having that thicker skin or can't work up to it, your better option might be getting somebody who can. I'm not saying you can't work on it. Anybody can work on it. But for some people, it's harder than others. It takes more time. There's deeper reasons why that fear is there. I joke around a lot about it, but I do look at it literally this way. Like I'm not a psychologist. I'm not, but I feel like I've played one in sales environments for 30 years. I've seen it all. I've seen every incarnation of it, and I've helped many people through these challenges. And the number one thing that people have to acknowledge is that it's real, that it's there, that they have to figure out a way of overcoming it. Because if they don't, it will always be there. It will never go away if they don't figure out how to master it and move it off to the side. So after your suit of armor is on, and after you've decided that you're going to change the world with what you have to offer, you need to keep in mind that you need to do what I call consistently a fear checkup. You need to go back and look at what you're doing on a regular basis and do a little checkup on yourself and make sure that you're not allowing fear to creep into your business again. If you figured out a way to master it, you have that suit of armor on and nothing is getting to you or negatively impacting you, and you just know that you're going to be successful and help a lot of people, but then all of a sudden you take some shots, you have a little adversity and you're challenged, you have to do a checkup. You have to check in and see how fear is impacting your sales process. Now, here's what that fear checkup looks like. You need to look at your interactions, your phone calls, your emails, your social media interactions, your appointments, your Zoom calls, your face-to-face meetings, and you need to analyze them and ask yourself, based upon what happened, how did you respond? Now, I'm not talking about what might be considered a self-assessment on the results of those interactions. Like a lot of people, and this is the way I train people, and other people have learned this, that you do an assessment of how the results were as a result of an appointment or a call. Like you go in with a plan and you see, did you execute the plan and what were the results? Was it good or bad, right? That's a different type of assessment. What I'm talking about is a fear checkup. I'm talking about digging in deep and looking at yourself and saying, did this change how I'm looking at where I am right now in sales? Did this interaction, this pushback, this challenge, this obstacle, this little Goliath in my way to success, did this change how I look at it? And has it made me take a step back? Some of the best producers I've ever had the great fortune of working with and training and developing over the years have been the type of people that recognize that whether you're winning or losing, failing or succeeding, it's a short-term issue. I share this a lot. It's a line that one of my mentors told me early in my career. He said, Joe, don't celebrate or commiserate past the moment. Meaning if something great happens, celebrate it and move on to the next thing. If something bad happens, deal with it, move on to the next thing, and don't let it get to you. And that's kind of where I came up with the idea of a fear checkup. Ask yourself, has this changed how I'm looking at my business? Has this put me in a place where I'm questioning everything else that I'm doing? Because I will tell you that ripple effect through your sales process, through your business, through your efforts, through your mind can become a lot worse than the individual stone that got dropped into the water to cause it. Think about that. One little thing, one little no, one little pushback, one little rejection, one little negative sign or checkpoint along the way can send a ripple through your business unless you do a checkup and catch yourself and make sure that it doesn't. Fear mastery really comes down to being honest and true with yourself about where you are and the impact of things on your life. In sales, it's absolutely deadly to your success if you allow fear to continue to permeate your effort. It will hold you back from making the right recommendations. It will restrict your interest in helping more people. That fear will shackle you and hold you back from your success. And I know there's been periods of my career when I went into lulls where I would have different things that were getting to me. And at some point, I would dig deep and I'd find where that core issue was, where that fear was, and I'd master it and move it off to the side. And it's the same for every single person. Now, the origin of the fear may be different, but if you don't find it, figure out that that's the core reason and figure out how to move it off to the side, it's going to keep coming back. It's going to rear its ugly head over and over again. The next time, and this is exactly the way this happens, and I want you to understand where this comes from. So, I'm speaking from experience because this is probably going to resonate with a few people. You have something negative that happens, whatever it is in business, right? You lose a client. You have a client that cancels a contract or signs and then decides not to move forward. Whatever it is, there's some negative issue that happens. It happens and it's glaring in your mind and it bothers you, right? And you think you've dealt with it. You think you've overcome that fear and gotten past it. You think you put it away. And then the very next time that something comes up, even in the least bit similar to that scenario, and you know where I'm going with this, it immediately rushes to your mind what happened with that person previously. And you tell yourself, oh no, here we go again. Same thing happened. Here we go again. I must be snake bit. I've got all the reactions. I've heard them all from people over the years. People tell themselves that, oh my gosh, here it is again. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? Or bad things happen in threes, right? You just, there's all these lists of things. Tell me this hasn't happened to you. Tell me somewhere along the way that you didn't have something negative happen in business. And the very next time anything even reminded you of it in the slightest way, you immediately told yourself, oh no, here we go. And your first reaction wasn't to stand up like a warrior in a suit of armor and deal with it. Your first reaction was, oh no, it's going to happen again. Now, I'm not saying that overcoming that is easy. And I'm not saying that you'll be able to change every situation that's thrown at you. Some of those things happen. They happen for reasons. Maybe they weren't clients that you wanted or should have had anyway. Maybe there are things that it just wasn't going to work no matter what. And finding out earlier was probably better than finding out later. Whatever the source of the negativity was, that doesn't matter. What I'm saying is if you don't figure out how to master it, put it into a box, push it off to the side, however you want to analyze it, and get it out of your way and make sure the box is closed up tight. The next time around that anything reminds you of what that experience was, you will find yourself in a tailspin waiting for the next ripple, the next little thing, the next wave of something going wrong. And that in and of itself is a bigger loss than the initial loss that you may have felt from that negative issue impacting you. And this is the same in sales more than anything else. I will tell you, one of the most underrated elements of sales success is the idea of sales motivation and sales momentum. It's underestimated, completely underestimated. People don't get it, but think about this. If you don't build momentum, if you don't build a pipeline, if you don't build true momentum towards success, a lot of things happening, it becomes hard to be consistent. You're hit and miss, hit and miss. So building momentum is important. But the worst thing that can happen is when you have momentum and all of a sudden, out of the blue, one negative thing starts infecting everything else that you're working on. And the motivation goes the opposite direction. You have activity, but now you're just waiting for bad things to happen instead of dealing with good things. Now, I'm not sitting here telling you that you're not going to have negative things happen. Of course you are. You're going to lose more deals than you're ever going to win. That's one of the realities of sales. People, they don't realize it, but you're going to get a lot more no's than yeses. And that's the way it's supposed to be. The fact is, you have to be prepared for the no's and you have to let them roll off your back and not let them get to you. And when you have negativity in your sales process, the only person that can fix it with help, if necessary, is you. You're the only person that can fix it because the battle isn't being fought with your prospect or with your vendor or with anybody else in your organization. The battle is being fought in your head. It's going on there, and you need to not allow it to ripple. Now, why is that so important? You need to stop the ripple effect. You need to not let it get to other clients, other situations. If you have a team, whoa, how powerful is that? You better stop it before it gets to your team. Imagine having a team of people and everybody's running around like Chicken Little telling themselves, oh, who's the next client ready to go? Fact is, if you don't control it that way, if you don't stop that ripple effect, if you don't master your fear in the sales process, that momentum in your business can go away a lot faster than it took for you to build it up. Over the years, over a 30 plus year career, I've lost track of the number of times I've had this conversation with people related to where they were in the development of their business and how they looked at their momentum. And so many times people would believe they were in the right place and they would scream confidence. But then the first time something went wrong, it was game over to them. They could not allow that one thing to go across every other thing that they were working on. And it held them back. Just like there were many, many times when I would look at top producers and I'd watch them lose large deals, very large deals. And the very next moment, they were right on to the next thing, realizing that I can't do anything about this, but I can control this next thing. They had figured out how to master it, how to overcome it. Now, I'm not talking to you about being a robot. I'm not talking to you about not caring and not having emotions, but it's like I said earlier, don't celebrate or commiserate past the moment. If it impacts you positively or negatively, deal with it, move on to the next thing. If it's a negative thing, absolutely don't let it go any further. Don't let it hit your team or other people that you're associated with, because every minute you spend talking about that negativity with somebody else or sharing that negativity on your team or embracing the negative aspects of things is time lost on the positive, and you can't get it back. So in your sales process, and this is so critical, and I want to make sure that you guys jot this down and you keep this in mind, you need to clearly identify all the things that you're afraid of that could go wrong. You need to quickly identify, where are you going to spend your time? Are you going to spend your time on the negative aspects or on the positive aspects? Because when you see things happen and they're not the way that you'd like them to happen, you can either choose to embrace it and figure out how to work through it, or you can allow that negativity to permeate through every other aspect of your business. And sales is just one piece of it. If you struggle with that, if you struggle with fear in what's going on in your business, whether it's as a result of some things going on with clients or whether it's as a result of third party influences. Like I know there are people on this call right now, on this live right now, that have people that are very close to them in their life, spouses, family members, friends that don't believe in them the way that they believe in themselves. I know it. I know it's out there. And if I'm talking to you, I'm not trying to make anybody uncomfortable. I'm just calling it what it is. It is very easy for that negativity to build momentum if you don't stop it, especially if there's somebody that's close to you that, doesn't believe to the same degree that you do, or doesn't believe that your path is the right path. You have to protect yourself against all of that. And that doesn't matter whether you are selling for a company, because I'll tell you, if you're working for a company and you're in an office and there's 10 other people doing what you do, that negativity creeps over the cubicle or into the next office just as easily as it does in your own head if you're not careful. People used to, in offices that I was involved with and worked in and managed and led over the years, I would see little pockets of people. And I used to walk up to them and say, is this a negative pocket or a positive pocket? Because I'm not spending any time in the negative pocket in the office. If you want to talk negative, that's up to you. I focused on the positives. I figured out how to overcome those things. In sales especially, it's critical because your prospects, your clients need you at your very best. All of the offerings, the products, the services, the things that you provide the world, the things that you can bring to the world to change lives and impact people only means something if you're at your very best and you have the opportunity to deliver them. If you aren't at your very best, if you aren't teed up in a way that gives you maximum confidence, in a way that holds you back, somebody is left out in the cold. Some prospect, some client isn't getting your best, isn't going to get your product or service. That fear is going to hold you back. And that would be the biggest shame of all. Not only would you not achieve the success that you're wholly capable of attaining, but think of all the people that you could have positively impacted that won't ever receive that impact. Make sure, no matter where you are in the process of selling, that fear is not playing an active role. Ask yourself this question: is fear your partner in this, or have you successfully put it off to the side? Because if you're allowing fear to partner with you in your business, I promise you, whether it's in the short term or just a little down the road, you're going to hit an obstacle that you aren't prepared to overcome, because that fear will build inside of you unless you master it and put it off to the side. I've had the great fortune of helping a lot of people with this problem over the years. And it's one of these things that I take very seriously, because I believe that people have amazing capabilities and offerings to bring to the world. And there's something so sad about seeing something that's amazing and great that doesn't reach its full potential because of something that could be managed a little bit better. And it could be just one call or one introduction or one meeting. That game-changing client, the one that changes everything for you, could be that very next client that you need to win. And the fact is, you can't lose that client because of fear. You can't put yourself in that position where fear restricts your ability. So put on your suit of armor, realize fear for what it is. You're never going to kill fear, but you're going to put it off to the side. You're going to master it. If you're struggling with that in your business, don't sit back and wait for the other shoe to drop. If there's something in your sales process today that worries you, that concerns you, that makes you afraid, or something in relation to what you're doing with your business as far as sales goes, and you have a worry with it, get help with it. Don't allow yourself to position yourself out of business because you aren't willing to deal with fear. I'd be more than happy to talk with anybody about fear in their business as far as sales goes and how they can overcome it. And more importantly, how they can correctly channel that fear in a positive way and not only overcome that fear, but how to triple your sales volume in 6 months or less. And it really boils down to a very simple methodology, embracing and figuring out how to overcome fear and master it and put it off to the side, and then taking some very particular steps. If you'd like to learn more about that, you can reach out to me by texting the word sales to the number 321-421-5213. That's sales to 321-421-5213. You're going to reach my digital business card, and you could just schedule an Impact Sales Mastery session with me. You can jump on my calendar. We'll talk one-on-one. It's confidential. We'll talk all about what's going on with sales in your business, and more importantly, how you can master that fear and take your sales to the next level. I want to thank once again our premier sponsor, Podcast Easy, and their amazing team for all the help that they've given us in the development and the delivery of the Impact Sales podcast. If you haven't checked out our podcast yet, definitely look up the Impact Sales podcast on your podcast channel of choice. We're on all the big ones. We're on 38 different podcasting platforms. Connect with us there. Listen to the Sales Activist on the Impact Sales podcast, or once again here on Impact Sales Live every Monday from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. You can also catch both our Impact Sales Lives as well as our podcast right on our YouTube channel for the Sales Activist. This is Joe Beck with the Sales Activist. I want to thank you all for being here. Sell better and impact the world. Take care.